Really excited to be here today to have the opportunity to show you a little bit more about short game shots, chipping, and how we can definitely improve our scores. So the name of the clinic today is called Bounce and Basics. We're going to be talking a little bit about bounce. What is bounce? How do you properly use bounce? You know, it's not a word that we use for like trampolines. It's actually a word that we use for wedges as well. Okay, so to explain the bounce here, every wedge has a certain amount of bounce. And we take a look at wedges. A lot of the wedge manufacturers will actually stamp a number, a secondary number on the bottom of your club. So if you've brought your wedges there, you might see a large number. So the large number, that's going to be the loft, and then that smaller number, that is the bounce. Okay. The bounce angle there is basically, it's a measurement of how high is this leading edge. Again, leading edge is the very frontmost part of the club there in relation to the ground here. Okay. And that is when your shaft is straight at 90 degrees here. So if you look at this wedge here, this wedge is a 58 degree with 10 degrees of bounce. Can you see everyone see kind of closely there? This leading edge here, that is sitting above the ground there, right? Yeah, right there. So that's the angle between the shaft and the leading edge. Okay. If I gave you an example of less bounce, so here I have a 9-iron. Can everyone see? Is that much less, right? So 9-iron and your pitching wedge probably have anywhere from 8 degrees or less. On a 56 or 58, that's most common for sand wedges. Those are going to range from 8 to maybe even 14, which is a higher bounce. So what does bounce do in the golf swing or in terms of turf interaction or bunkers? Bounce is there to help the club preventing from digging. Okay. My best analogy is like if you like ice cream. Who loves ice cream? I love ice cream. My daughter loves ice cream too. She'll eat that over dinner every day. If you have a spoon going through ice cream, there is bounce, right? Because you've got a lower lip and 2 edges. So the spoon going through ice cream will go down, come back, and then loop back up through. If I took a knife through ice cream, can I get the ice cream out? Probably not. It's just going to dig straight in. So same concept applies for wedges and turf interaction, right? So if I have my 58 degree here with 10 degrees of bounce, that's sitting straight. If I come into impact like that, can you see I'm leading with that leading edge there? When I lead in with that leading edge, that's like that knife through ice cream, okay? So a lot of the shots that I see, actually specifically around here, this was a big reason why we're doing this clinic, is because people don't know how to use the bounce. They're coming in, do something like that, right? Is that common? Anyone seen that? Okay. So that kind of shot there, you know, it's not going to result in a good shot. We're sticking the club into the ground. You're going to have turf interaction before ball interaction, and that ball is going to go nowhere, right? Leading to high scores, unhappiness, and not spending a lot of time out here, right? So I think the key is, okay, so how do we properly use the bounce in short game is that we actually want to be able to slide and almost take the back or middle edge of the club, and you can see I'm going back and forth here, no digging, right? So that's just a simple motion back and forth, no digging, okay? We'll talk about setup next, but I think the most important thing is understanding there is bounce with every shot, right? So I can go back and forth as many times as I want and not dig it. The moment I start to get steep, so steepness is coming down that way, and I lead in the ground, I'm going to leave a big divot like that, okay? So once we understand that, and different clubs have different bounces, some people play 60 degrees, right, which is a lob wedge. Lob wedges, they might range from a low bounce. I've seen some as low as like 4 degrees of bounce, which is very scary, right? bounce is actually your friend. The less bounce you have, the more likely it is to dig. Okay. Other 60 degrees, I've got some sample wedges here. Other 60 degrees might even have as much as 14 degrees of bounce. So the 14 degrees of bounce is actually going to make it more forgiving. Okay. When we talk about that, club selection is crucial. Okay. Club selection, I've got 3 pins close to me here, and I've got 1 pin right there. That's the yellow pin. That's kind of a short-sided pin. In all these cases, I would actually use a club that has less bounce. Okay. The reason being is I don't need to take this shot high. I don't need to necessarily elevate the shot. And I think that's why a lot of these divots here, people are probably using the wrong club and wrong technique. Okay. If I'm going to go to this first pin on the left here, I would actually use a 52 degree. So that is my gap wedge. All right. And then I'll hit one shot here first, and then we'll kind of talk about the setup and, how we would hit this shot. Okay. So you can see once that ball hits the green, it's rolling like a putt. My big theory for short game and hitting all these shots is you want to get the ball on the green as soon as possible, being the reason that you start to reduce risk. Okay. Risk happens when we take a longer backswing, longer in length, or start to add unnecessary acceleration. So I've hit, I would say, decent shot. It broke a little bit left. Distance was right. I tried to land that ball on the green as close to the fringe as I could. And then once it hit the green, you saw that it was rolling like a putt. So that's going to give you the best chance to get close to the hole most consistently. Okay. Any questions with that shot choice? Not really. This bounce is also 10. Same, 10. Good question. 52 degree gap wedges, they typically are pretty standard, 10 to 12. Most cases, gap wedges, you're hitting from fairways, approach shots, so they have a little bit less bounce, right? So the setup for the shot, so we'll go over the setup here. Couple things is with short game technique, the main goal here is we're trying to control the low point. Okay, so that's a key term that you'll hear is controlling. Low point is where is that club bottoming out? Is that club bottoming out before the ball, at the ball, or after the ball? Okay. In all cases for short game, we want to hit the ball first. We rarely want to hit behind the ball. Okay. That's only in, say, like bunker play when you're going to actually hit a little bit behind it. Okay. So how do I get that low point to be right at the ball? It all has to do with setup and kind of spine tilts, ball position, pre-swing setups. What we'll do after we're done today is we'll have our golf professionals go around. We'll take a look at each of your setups, and I'm sure there's probably some changes that we can make to get you have a little bit better turf contact. Okay. When we look at setup here, a couple things we're going to focus on is your sternum and your spine. Okay, sternum and spine a lot of times are going to dictate, am I coming in too shallow? Shallow meaning too early, or too steep down into the ball. A good rule of thumb is I like your sternum or your shirt button slightly to the left. Okay, so when we go slightly to the left, that gets your weight and center of gravity a little bit left of center. Can everyone see that there? A little bit left. Okay. What I see a lot of times, and this is through maybe golf instruction that isn't delivered to the individual, people say, okay, let's get your weight left. Well, I got my weight left. What did that do to my shirt buttons? Right? Now my upper body and my sternum is way behind it, and I might hit a shot like this right, something like that. Okay. So again, key is thinking about where is your spine angle and where is your angle of attack. On that soft shot there, I've got my spine angle a little bit left, thinking there, and I'm going to try to hit the ball first. Okay, and then it rolls kind of like a putt there. Setup on your stance. So key things with your stance and setup here is I see a lot of people setting up to these shots like they would a full swing, right? That does a couple things. That gets you a little bit too far from the ball. You're starting to be hunched over, and then we start to take the club too big of a backswing and too far inside, right? So a lot of these players would do something like that and stick it in the ground as well. When we're around the greens and short and close, I think the closer you are to the ball, it's going to make the shot a lot easier, right? I'm not making a big swing. So for this shot here, you can see my setup. I'm almost on top of the ball. If I measure, I'm about 1, 2, 3, almost about 3.5 club lengths away from the ball. Very vertical and just kind of right on top of the ball. What that does is that makes sure that I'm utilizing that bounce, right? The motion itself of the swing, very much like a putting stroke, okay? I actually call this shot here, this is like a putt chip. So I'm set up very close to the ball, more vertical, again, spine a little bit left, and then I'm almost going to take a little putting stroke, okay? Any questions on that? Yes?
So you're talking about landing it as close to the edge of the green as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And in theory, I like to do that. What I find around here is oftentimes it's super soft around the surrounds, and we have really sticky grass. So to me, it's almost more risky to try to land it as close as possible because I risk of leaving it in the
Sure.
fringe or it's super short, it just kills it. So to me, the less risky shot is maybe trying to land it like 2 or 3 yards on, in which
Yep.
case using like a 54 or something like that, would you use the exact same setup if you were
Exactly.
54 for that?
Yeah, 54 because you have a little bit more loft. That would kind of get into ball position there. So very good question, Kristen. So when we have more loft, so I've got a 60 degree here and I've got a 52. More loft means that ball's going to come out a little bit higher. If I hit a 60 to this pin here and I didn't carry it far enough, oops, one more time. All right, if I hit 60 degrees here, let's try again. Yeah. Yeah, I don't use 60. There you go. Okay, so I hit that kind of how I want to. I landed a couple feet on the green. It did not get to the pin. So for me, that is not a shot that I'm used to because I don't like to carry it that far and I have to take a longer, more energy swing. But good point. I think it depends on the player, right? It depends very much on the player. What? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So one thing we didn't talk about too much yet was face angle. So I've got 52 here. So if I open the face angle, and you'll hear this a lot when you're trying to change the height of the shot. If I open that face angle, what does that do to the bounce? Increases the bounce, right? So more bounce means that it's less likely to dig. Then I can almost trust that I can kind of hit down into the ground and have a little bit more height. So if I try to open face angle here on that 52 and hit a little bit longer shot, right? You see that carry a little further, had a little more energy, also started to have a little bit more spin. Okay, so good question. So basic setup, I think what we want to remember is what is your standard setup for all shots. Standard setup should be ball slightly middle or back, sternum left, and feet about shoulder width apart. Okay, now when you start to advance into changing height or changing ball position, right? So a ball further back, what does that do to my loft? That makes it go down, right? A ball more forward, more loft, okay? Same thing with face angle. Face angle, face open, more bounce, more loft. It's going to go higher, All right, face closed. Be careful with this one, right? Face closed. That actually takes out the bounce. So this one, that's going to come out a lot lower, and it started to dig there. Okay. Question, Kevin? No. Okay. Question, yes.
Yeah, some instruction, everything you said except opening up the left foot.
Mm-hmm.
Turn.
Yeah.
What do you think about
Yeah, good question. So if you saw my setup, I was actually slightly open to the left. The reason why we would set up slightly open is because that allows my hips and torso to get out of the way on the way through. Right? If I'm setting up too square, it's a lot more difficult for me to get my turn and body through. So if I had a little longer shot to, let's say, that back pin there, you would see a little bit more speed, right? A little more speed and a little bit more hip turn there. Okay, and I'm creating that more speed through more turning, right? So more turning of the belt buckle. One of the most common issues that I see with chipping is like, I'm blading it, I'm fatting it, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, they do something like this, right? Didn't all wrist, I didn't move my body at all. I think the key you'll see with good players, professionals, is how much their body moves through the hitting area and impact zone. All right. When I take that club back, there's a little soft little hip turn there. Take it back to through here, and then from there, I'm thinking, turn my core, turn my center, turn my shoulders. I'm not thinking anything about the club here. I'm thinking about just getting this through. So one more shot here. Okay. You can see that one flew a little further. I added a little bit more speed there. I've hit, I don't know, 15 shots here, and you can see barely any reminiscent of a big divot, right? So I think that's key is whoever's out here, yeah, I don't know what they're doing, right? Yeah, hopefully they're here. If they're not here, tell them to come to the next one, because tell them they need a golf lesson because they're not doing it properly, right? So that was talked about bounce, talked about setup. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about how to actually practice this, right?
How do you decide which the right bounce for you?
Good question. So a lot of that is going to be dependent on what is your normal swing shape, right? So if I see someone who's very steep in that they start to pick it up here and come down steeper, more bounce will actually help you. Okay. If you've got a swing that's going to be more shallow in this kind of fashion, more like a level C versus like a V, then less bounce, right? That's very much player dependent. I think based on our conditions here, we played medium to softer conditions, especially during winter and springtime. So I would say all Northern California courses tend to be a little bit softer. Only time you would really want to consider a low bounce if you're playing a lot in, the desert, Scottsdale, hard pan, right? Or you're a very high level player where, you can control the low point, control that bounce, and need that variability, right?
So what degree is like 8 to 10 kind of the normal?
I would say for a sand wedge, 56 degree, anywhere from 10 to 14 would be appropriate. And that's what I would recommend for the majority of our members here. Once you start to get below 8 on a 56 or 58, then that's like very high risk of digging. Okay.
What about on a
52, that's going to be a little bit more standard. That's going to be either like a 10, 10 or an 8 would be more standard. Okay. Yes.
Kevin, I've heard two schools of thought about chipping
Mm-hmm.
from excellent pros.
Okay.
One school of thought is keep your stance and ball position pretty standard
Mm-hmm.
and change clubs
Yes.
obviously for different kinds of shots. Others say use your favorite club and adjust your position.
Correct. I would agree, and I think you know, 40, 50 years ago when they didn't have the technology that they had now, most touring professionals or most good players, they actually had a 56 degree. So as their highest club. And then somehow some club designer designed a 60 degree to make it much easier to hit it higher. So what would happen was people who had the 56 degree, I think I have one, 56 degree right here. I think I should have one right here. Okay, so I got a 56 degree right here. So with the 56 degree, players would have to find out, okay, how am I going to hit it higher? And that would go back to the things that we talked about, changing the ball position, changing the face angle, or varying the setup to be able to hit it higher. I'm a big believer, and I'll never tell you, like if you're one of my students, I'll tell you on the golf course, you know which club you're going to pull the best, right? If this is a shot we haven't practiced yet, I wouldn't tell you to try it. So whatever club that it is most comfortable for you on the course and that you're going to feel like you have the best likeliness of hitting that solid, I would tell you to do that. How that would change. So, you know, let's say if I had 56 degree and I try to go to that back pin I was just going to here, we'd have to take a longer swing. Oh, not a good swing there. Okay, longer swing. And I have risk of kind of hitting it too far here. Still very much the same setup. It's a tough shot. I mean, even for me. Okay, I'm gonna switch it up. I've got 9-iron here. Okay, so 9-iron here. I'm gonna pick my land spot that's 2 to 3 paces off the edge of the green. Okay, so I would take that any day, right? I mean, yes.
One thing I noticed with is that the ball really checks up.
It does, and that's a variable that you'll have to take in, right? 56, I was taking it all up to here, and you have to have more speed compared to this 9-iron. I mean, I could sit up here and just a soft shot like that and have very consistent results, right? That's 5 feet. My stroke there was only to here to there. So I think that shot you'll see out on tour a lot. I don't think anyone would, I mean, not anyone, but most players would probably play it lower there because you have that option. If you don't have that option, if we had to fly it there, then yes, you know, we would definitely take that 56 or 60. But in this case, because you have the option to roll it, I would do that. Yes.
We have a lot of approach shots where if you miss the green here or par fives and two, where you do have to carry a bunker and
Higher.
hit quickly. Like
Yep.
say if you're short of the bunker on 3 or short of the bunker on 18 or something like that.
Definitely.
Can you explain what your setup would be?
Yeah, sure.
That shot
So
carry the bunker and stop it.
absolutely. So set up on those shots here. So let's say if we had a shorter pin, maybe like the one on the right here, that little yellow pin here. I carry 58, and that's the highest lofted club in my bag. What I would do is I would, number one, I'd open the face a little bit, and I'm only opening it up a couple degrees. So no more than like that. Okay, that would be more like a bunk shot. So I'm only opening right there. That's about 60 degrees there. That's plenty of loft for me. Second thing I would do is I would move the ball position just slightly more forward. Okay, so I haven't transitioned into that big full swing yet. I'm still kind of narrow, close to it. Face is slightly open, ball forward. Okay, and you see that stop really quickly. So I didn't necessarily take a big high lofted swing, but that carried high enough and it's had enough stopping power that we can, you know, get that ball to stop. A little more. Right. So Again, that's got a lot of stopping power there. I did not add speed yet. If I added some more speed, it would actually start to go a little bit higher. And it kind of stops there, right?
So to get the short stop, you took a more lofted
I took
club
more loft.
and open. And
Yeah, open the face and move the ball forward. Correct, correct. One more here. So open face, couple degrees open, ball forward. Oopsies.
I got that shot.
Yep.
I got that shot.
Sorry. All right. So that was bladed a little bit, but you know, that's kind of like, yes.
Kevin, when I see your swing, I noticed two things. Right before you bring it back to swing, you press your hands slightly forward,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't seem to have a lot of
Wrist hinge. Good. Yeah.
that.
That's actually intentional. So the press is not every player has their own trigger in their swing. For me, it's always that little forward press. Some people will maybe do a little squat or a little motion with their body. Different for all players. The reason why I like to keep it a little bit wider on the takeaway here is that ensures that I'm going to get more shallow into the swing. Right? When we start to get steep, you know, then that's when you have some of those shots that you're going to hit the ground or hit behind it. Yes, exactly, right. So we get a little more shallow, and this is very much like Jason Day, how he chips. If anyone's seen him chip, he's very wide and shallow there. So I purposely try to keep it a little bit wider, so I keep that club more in front of me, and then I'm going to feel like, okay, I'm going to turn my body through here. So here, right, so that's a little higher, a little more spin. But the same type of shot is wide here and there. Will there be some shots that I use some hinge and allow it to float? Absolutely. Yes. So over here on the left side of the green, we've got a lot of slope and then short-sided. So if you need to get the ball up quicker, then we start to introduce a little bit of the wrist hinge on the way back. But I would say that's much more advanced. Most players would be better off feeling kind of like a wide and shallow using their turn, right? Bunker shots, yes, we do need this, right? Because you want to get that ball up high and quick. But on a normal basis, you know, I would say wider is better. Okay. Any other questions kind of on that? And we can transition into maybe yes.
So sometimes the more I open up my club, sometimes I want the ball to go that way.
Yep.
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, good questions. So the ball will go in the direction your club is pointing. Is that correct? Or
That may be the case.
okay.
But I want to go straight.
You want it to go straight. Yeah, that's a good question here. So when we open the face angle here, if I'm going towards that yellow pin here, you can see my face there. If I open up, it's probably pointing, you know, at that gentleman there or over at the stairs. And that brings in some risk. If I don't catch that ball properly, you know, is that ball going to go to the right? One of the most common things I see with chipping and short game is people like their takeaway is too far inside and around them, and you're going to catch the ground early. So if I hit this shot and kind of like that, I might blade it that way. So a good drill, and you know, we have these alignment sticks at our practice facility now. Put something almost on your foot line straight back there, and that's going to train you to go straighter back here. Okay, when you get that club straighter back and in front of you there, that gives you the chance to, oops, one more time. So that gives you the chance to return that face back down and kind of to the left, okay? I've never seen a good chipper with a swing that would go back to the inside. So more vertical on the way back through or straighter back, it's going to give you the chance to return that club back down to square there. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about how to actually practice this, right? So you'll come out here. I would say if you had half an hour to practice, start with a middle lofted club first. Don't start with your sand wedge or highest lofted club. Start with like a gap wedge. Hit some little shots to the front of the green. One drill I love to do is a ladder drill. So I'll take a few alignment sticks and then we'll set one stick about 2 paces there, another 2 paces there, and then another 2 paces there, right? So let's call this zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. All right, so after you've kind of hit a few chips and practicing the feel and the contact, what we would do is we would progress and start to work up the ladder and then back down the ladder. So if I got my 52 here, and this is a fun game that we actually do with our juniors a lot, and it teaches them how to start to use more speed for distance control. So first shot here, zone 1. Okay, so that would count. All right, let's try it for zone 2. Oh, a little far, zone 3, right? So then you would hit another ball, try for zone 2 again. There we go, right? And then you do zone 3, and then you could go back down, right? So when you start to vary the distance, that's starting to give you feel. And, feel is going to be the best way that you're going to be able to transfer to the golf course, right? When we start to practice the same shot over and over again, you're going to be good at that shot, but that's not going to transfer to the golf course. Okay. Any other questions?
A good combination for wedges, like a 52, 56,
Yes.
or
Yeah. Great question. So what we recommend is ideally about 4 to 6 degrees of gapping between your wedges. So what you would typically do first is you would find out what is your pitching wedge loft. So pitching wedge loft, if you're at 46, and then you figure out what is your highest lofted club. So if you want to go with a 56 or 58, then you've got, let's say if you went 46 on your pitching wedge, 58 on your sand wedge, then you could go 46, 50, 54, 58, 4-degree gapping. Yeah. I see a lot of people, they'll have a 52, 54, maybe even a 56 as well. And it's like, oh, what do you use those for? It's like, oh, I hit this 105, I hit this 110, I hit this 115. Well, I think you're probably wasting a club there, because what you could do is just with the higher lofted club, just choke down on it, swing a little bit less, right? Things like that.
Both mine have the same amount of bounce, a 50
That's
and a
fine.
56. Do you need to vary the bounce?
Some players do. Some players do, depending on what type of shot shapes you hit. So for my gap wedge, I use it around the greens a lot more than I'm hitting full shots in. So I like to keep it the same as what my sand wedge is. But if you have a gap wedge or a pitching wedge that you're only strictly using for full shots, then that's something you want to use less bounce, because you're going to be kind of digging in a little bit more. Right? All right. Yes, question.
question coming in from chat. Distance control on a wedge. How do you vary it? Are you on a clock system? Is it strictly speed driven?
Yeah.
How do you go about that?
It's going to vary for different players, right? So some players who are more technical, they use that kind of clock system that you talked about. So clock system, if we have, call it 3 o'clock here and 9 o'clock. So if I'm at, call it 4:30 there, and I deliver that same amount of speed, how far is that ball going to go, right? Then you would try another one at 3 o'clock. That's one method. For me, I feel it more. I'm not a big thinker when I play, so I feel it more with, okay, how quickly am I turning my body? So if I take this back, and have a lot more acceleration, I know that's going to go further. And that's kind of done through practice, and same thing with that ladder drill. You'll have to find out what works best for you. There's not one method that's better for one player. I would say people who are more technical players, they might do better with, the clock system. People who are more feel players tend to want to be able to feel that turn and that motion there. Okay. Yes.
Does the bounce matter much at bunkers?
It does. It does. And I would say the key variable here is how much we're opening the face, right? Once we know that, okay, open club face here is going to increase the bounce, that's going to be more beneficial to you in softer sand. So more bounce, softer conditions, that's more likely to come back out. And let's say you get a plug lie, right? So a plug lie or something that's a fried egg, the more you close the face, the more likely that wedge is going to start to dig in and go deeper in the ground to pop that ball out. So yes.
On shots like that, are you swinging typically left of your target when you go to release it, or are you going right at it?
You're talking about a basic chip shot. Good question here. So I am actually allowing the handle of the grip to go slightly to the left. If we talk about the golf swing itself, it's a big circle, a big arc. If I were to get this club going towards a target and down straight that way, I'm actually starting to tilt the arc and I artificially get my hands out that way. That's going to lead to shanks, thin shots, and things like that. What I would feel is I would feel the hands stay almost closer to my left pocket. So if you watch tour players, or high level players hit shots, they will finish with their hands a little bit more to the left, almost by their left pocket. So it kind of looks like this here, right? Keeping the rotation there, keeping the club up in front of them. Yeah, this way. We don't want this. Not so much of that, because that's going to be a flip. All right. Okay. Let's kind of finish up here. So we've got about 10 more minutes. If you want to come over here, and I've got some wedges that you can test out with different bounces, different grinds, things like that. You're more than welcome. Just come see one of us golf professionals, and we'll get that to test you. Yes, Sally. Yeah.
Quick question before you finish. You
Yeah.
started to say the first thing you do you're setting up a practice round was to do the ladder drill with your gap wedge.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next thing you do?
Next thing. Okay, so after I do the ladder drill, I was fortunate enough to watch Tiger win at 2019 at Augusta. So I was actually there for the full week, and I spent probably a couple hours just hanging out at the short game facility, watching him hit all kinds of shots. So he's one that likes to use his 60 degree from everywhere because he's so versatile in his technique. So he actually took 5 balls, and let's say he was going at that, maybe this first pin here on the left here. The first shot he would set up with his kind of ball back, face closed, and then almost hit something like that as low as he could, right? Sorry? Yes, yeah, more intentional stab. Like, let's say if you had a bad lie here, putting that ball back and closing the face, I can still kind of get away with that hitting down. Then the next shot, he went a little bit higher, more like a standard shot, kind of like that. And then he progressed with the next 3, that his last shot was almost like a high full swing flop. Right. Kind of like a lot higher. And he was hitting all kinds of different shots, low to high, 5 shots with the same club. There were actually some pins that were tucked up on the left side. So this is like high level advanced. So up on that left side, he would hit some shots that were almost like drawing into the hill. He would try to hit a little draw with a wedge. Um, most people would say you can't really draw a wedge, right? But there was clearly some draw spin on it that he was able to keep that ball a little bit straighter to reduce the amount of the slope, right? So drawing, cutting it, all kinds of variation. Yes.
You're talking about like trying to draw it a little bit or trying to cut it a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Do you ever experiment with like where you're hitting it on the club face, like hitting it more off the toe to like reduce spin, or like more towards the heel?
Not to that extent. I'm not that good. So I'm not that good to be able to find out like, okay, where am I hitting on the face? But in a sense that yes, you can close the face or open the face to try to create something. And a lot of more of that is more like if I relate it to tennis, right? A ball that's going to top spin is going to go more this way. That's kind of the same thing you're feeling there versus something that's going to spin around. It's that way to the left, right? Yeah, I would say master the basic shots first, right? That's going to be 90% of your shots. Once we master the basics, change the little things first, like change the ball position, change the face angle, right? I think you can do so much with that first before you start to try to figure out, okay, what is my wrist hinge doing? What is my release doing? Things like that, right? Yeah. All right, are we ready to hit some chips? Okay, all right. We come on over this way and then we can kind of help you out with